guys, and welcome to my first real video on this channel. Today I'm going to be doing a review on all the books that I read over the summer. I read a lot over the summer. I made a goal to read 15 books, and I think that I was only short by one and read 14. But yeah, so today I'm going to be showing you books. I don't have all of them because some of them are with friends. I did let friends borrow some. But yeah, I'm going to show you the title of the book, give you a small little like definition without giving it away. My dog's in here, so if you hear any extra noises from her. And then I'll give you my rating out of 10. So let's get started with the first book. So Evie has decided to join us. But the first book we have is Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover, and this book I gave a 10 out of 10 and I finished it in 4 days. This was the first book that I read over the summer. It made me cry hysterically at the end. It helped me get back into reading just because of how interesting it was and how the story was being told, and I just feel like there's something, like there's just an aspect of this book that like keeps making you want to find out and find out and find out, and so that's why I think this book is so good and I definitely recommend. Okay, the next book is It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. I definitely started reading again when all of these Colleen Hoover books were really popular on TikTok, and that's just kind of what got me back into reading again. So this book I finished in 3 days and I gave it an 11 out of 10. There's a little bit of a triggering topic in this book. It deals with abuse. But I just love the way that Colleen Hoover writes. I love the way that she makes it so, like, she just makes all her stories so intriguing. I also definitely recommend this one. Yeah. Okay, so book number 3 I don't have with me, but it's called, I have it on here. It's called The Space Between Words by Michelle Phoenix. It's on my Instagram story of books. It's really good. It's kind of a little bit confusing at times because of the way that the story kind of is set up, but it's still a really good book. I finished it in 4 days and I gave it an 8 out of 10 just because it is a little bit confusing. But overall, really good book. My mom's reading it right now, so I don't have it. But yeah, I really did enjoy that book. It was very different from anything that I'd ever read because I'm used to reading like books for school or like stuff like Colleen Hoover, which is mostly romantic books, romance books. But yeah, it was a really good book, very different, so I do recommend that book as well. Next we have Looking for Alaska. Now this book, on my Instagram story I gave a 9 out of 10, but I'm going to demote it to a 7 out of 10 because, and only because of the ending. I read this book, I want to say in middle school for class, that's why it's so like beat up. But I wanted to read it again because I remembered it being a really good book and I remembered really loving it, and so I read it again, and once I got to the end I was like, there's no way that that's all. So I really do love the story. It's a great book, great everything except the ending. The ending could have been so much better. So do I recommend? No, because I don't want you to be angry. The next book I also don't have. It is We Were Liars. And that book I finished in 2 days and I gave it an 11 out of 10. However, it's a good book. I just think you can kind of see the plot twist coming, and I really just read it because it was another book that I had seen that was hyped up on TikTok. It's not a bad book, it's a good book, but there could be more to it, you know what I mean? So I do recommend, because I did enjoy the book. I gave it an 11 out of 10, but yeah, I just feel like there could have been more. This book right here, The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, I gave a 15 out of 10, and I finished it in 4 days. This book is probably in my top 3 books I've ever read of all time. Like, the story is so good. There's so many things that you don't expect to happen that happen, and like it just, the drama just keeps going and going. I really enjoyed this book thoroughly, and now I heard they're making I think on Netflix, they're making a movie about it, and I simply cannot wait to watch that. But yeah, really good book. I definitely recommend this book. Basically, I know I haven't really been giving out great descriptions of each of the books, just because I like to just give my rating and leave it at that, so that you're not going into it expecting something like you're blind. And that's how I like to go into books. I don't like to like listen to what I don't even read the backs. I go on blind. But this book is about a journalist who's just starting out, and this famous woman, Evelyn Hugo, wants to write like a memoir of her life, and only wants the starting out journalist to do it, and there's a reason why, and it's a lot, but it's very good. Please go read. The next book that I also don't have with me is Verity by Colleen Hoover. I gave that book a 9 out of 10, and I finished it in 2 days. That book is a pretty easy read. You can see I finished it in 2 days. It actually scared me. Like, the book actually scared me at times. Like, it's a very, like, chilling, unsettling story. But it's so good. Like, I don't know what it is about Colleen Hoover, but, like, I will eat up anything she writes because it's all just so good. But no, very good book. I liked it a lot. Okay, and then the next book that I also don't have is The Song of Achilles. I gave it a 10 out of 10, and I finished it in 4 days. That book honestly blew my mind. It's obviously not a true story. It's written about like ancient characters, and it's just such a cool, like, I don't know. That book was very interesting to me, the way it was written, the way that the story unfolded. It was a roller coaster of emotions, I'll say that. And I definitely recommend, I honestly would bump it up to like a 12 out of 10 if I could. You know what, I will. It's a 12 out of 10. Okay, the next book we have is The Red Tent. So I gave this book a 7 out of 10, and I finished it in 6 days. So this is the book that took me the longest to read. My mom showed me this book, and she had me read it. And the only reason I give it a 7 is because of how long it took me to read. And it took me that long to read because it kind of, it's an interesting book, but there are times where it takes a very long time to get interested or continue being interested in the book. It's about this like family of girls who they all live together. It's like the mom and then the kids and the aunts, and it takes place in ancient Egypt, and it's, I don't want to give too much away, but it's about like the job of a woman in this time, and how sacred like your time of the month is, and like being synced up with the moon, and like there's a lot of really interesting things that I learned in this book. And then there's a terrifying thing that her brothers do that you will have to read to find out, which really shocked me. But yes, good book. I honestly, like, story-wise, gave it a 10 out of 10 or maybe a 9 out of 10, but just because of how slow it was in the beginning, I gave it a 7 out of 10 because I honestly wanted to quit reading it, but I was like, can't do that, so obviously I didn't. But yeah. Okay, Daisy Jones and the Six. I have such a story to go with this book. This book I gave a 15 out of 10. It just really inspired me in a way that I can't, well, I'm going to explain, so I can explain. But so I was a part of a film group called No Comment Film Fellowship in 2021 to 2022. And we had mentors that were from all across the world, and so mine lived in Brazil. And I was making a documentary about my dad, who passed away when I was young, and the purpose of the documentary was I was interviewing his old co-workers and family members and friends, trying to like learn more about him. And my mentor was like, "Do you read?" And I was like, "Yeah." She was like, "You need to go get Daisy Jones and The Six and read it, because I think that's how you should do your documentary. I think it would like help you have inspiration, because at the time, COVID, we weren't allowed to meet with our like friends in the group, not in the group, we weren't allowed to meet with our friends in the fellowship, and it was just really a trying time. So I kind of had given up hope on my documentary, and she told me to read this book to give me inspiration, and I never did. And then when I read it over the summer, it kind of like opened up a spark in me, because if you know what happens at the end of the book, I think you'll maybe understand what I'm getting at about my documentary. But it just made me think like, I still want to kind of finish this as an honor to my dad. And so that is something that I've been working on behind the scenes, and hopefully someday we'll get to post after it's perfection like I want it. So this book, I love it so much just because it gave that inspiration to me. And I feel like no other book has really done that. Like being a storybook, not like a self-help book, you know what I mean? So I really cherish and love this book. Okay, next we have Good as Gone by Amy Gentry. This book I got at Goodwill. I used to go to Goodwill and just get like stacks of books at a time so that I could have as many books to read as I'd ever need. I gave it an 8 out of 10, and I read it in 2 days. It's a really small book, pretty easy read. It is such a good story. It's such a good story. Please read this book. I don't even know where to begin with this book. It's a thriller, I believe. Yes, it is a thriller, and it was one of the first thrillers I read other than Verity, and it surprised me. I love thrillers because they're thrilling. No, but very good book. Obviously I read it in 2 days. I honestly will probably read it again someday when I forget what happens at the end and throughout the middle and at the beginning. But it's crazy. It's a really good book. I really enjoy this book. Okay, and our last book, I think you just saw it, is The Silent Patient. This book took me like the longest to read by far, but I give it a 10 out of 10, maybe even more. Like my brain couldn't even comprehend what happened. Uh-oh. What? She's acting crazy. But yeah, this book, like, seriously did not see it coming. Did not see it coming at all. I feel like some books, you can kind of tell when something's gonna happen. I could not tell. This book is amazing. I love this book. I'm not even going to tell you what it's about because you have to go find out for yourself. Such a good book. I'm sure that everyone's probably already read this anyway because I'm late, but I love this book and I do think that it's a really good read. Pretty easy to read. The chapters are really short, but there's like a lot of them. So, yeah. And the book I'm currently reading is called The Night Olivia Fell. It's about a young girl who dies and her mother finds out that she's pregnant after she dies, so they have to keep her alive to get the baby out. and they won't investigate how she died, so the mother is trying to investigate herself how her daughter died. It's a really good story so far, kind of annoying the way it flips back and forth between like after she's died and before she's died. I wish they would have kind of set it up better, but still, nonetheless, good book. And maybe that one will be in my next book review. Bless you. But maybe that will be in my next book review after I finish many more. I have a lot more books to read. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. But let me know if you like this video by liking and subscribing. Leave a comment what other videos you want to see, and I'll see you next Monday. Bye.